So the next block that we shall start with is understanding the segmentation principles. So what are the segmentation principles? There are three principles. The first one is to use first-hand data to, okay, hope it's all right. I had some trouble with my screen. Use first-hand data, stick to reality, observe the market. The second principle is to make a typology. A typology instead of a segmentation. What is it? The third point is to combine intuition and rationalization. So let's start with the first principle. Use first-hand data, observe the market. Observe the market. What else? What else? But when we say observe the market, we mean observe the demand market. And why shall we insist on demand market? Because research has revealed that one market survey out of two is observing the supply side market. So in other words, one market study out of two observe the competition rather than the clients, which means that the client is out of your concerns. And what do I mean? Let's illustrate with an example with our famous conducting line. You remember our conducting line yesterday? This fiber for reinforcing the concrete. If you remember how we process for assessing the size of the market, we said for clicks on internet, we go and visit the websites of the cement manufacturers, and we realize in 4 clicks on internet that altogether they make 1,500 million tons of cement per year. We have observed the supply side market, the cement manufacturer market, but not the builders manufacturer, the builders market. And who are our clients? Who will purchase this fiber from you? The builders, not the competitors. But why one market study out of two observe the supply side market? You have guessed easily. It is much easier to do 4 clicks on internet rather than go and visiting 30,000 builders. And furthermore, it's difficult to visit the builders because the builders are constantly busy. They are constantly on their construction sites. And if you go and interview them, well, trust me, you will have to put your feet in the mud, because it is the real condition in which you can interview these kind of clients. So you understand that it is much easier for a consultant or for a company to observe the offer market instead of the demand market. But if you observe just the competition, the clients are out of your concern and you miss your real client's expectation. So what is the second principle? The second principle is to make a typology. To make a typology instead of a segmentation. Wow, you will tell me, but what does it mean? We are discovering a segmentation method, and you tell us to make a typology instead of a segmentation. What does it mean? So to understand the meaning of this, let's come back to the definition of what a segmentation is. A segmentation, in a strict meaning, is a top-down process. So in this top-down process, so we are walking upside down, sorry. In this top-down process, we start the market. We choose criteria called segmentation criteria to split the market into pieces called segments, and in every single segment there are clients. There are lots of clients that you will contact for selling your offer in the future. So that's a top-down process starting from the market to the clients. And what is a typology? Well, the typology is the contrary. It is a bottom-up process starting from the clients, starting from the field, starting from field information. If you read the top of this slide, stick to reality. What is the reality? The reality is the clients and their problem. So you start from the clients, you group the clients that look alike, then you can group the segment in business units or whatever, and when you gather all the segment, it gives you a market. So it is a bottom-up process, but what's the point? What's the point? Why making a typology instead of the segmentation? Because you will tell me that in both cases we achieve segments. So what's the point doing a typology instead of a segmentation? Well, the first reason for that, the first good reason for that is that if you want to split the market, if you consider that the segmentation consists of describing a non-existing market for the first time, how can we start from the market to split it into segments? As a matter of fact, to divide the whole, we need to get the whole first. So we come back to what we said yesterday. The engineer is splitting the problem into pieces, but the innovator is putting the parts together to get the whole first. So it's the same with the segmentation. As the market does not exist yet, you cannot start from the market to start the process. So you cannot start the process from the end to start with. So you must use another process for doing. And that's the meaning of an original segmentation. Original segmentation means describing the market as such for the first time. So the second good reason for making a typology rather than a segmentation is which criteria shall we use for segmenting the market? Consider the top-down process that I have described before. So I told you that the segmentation consists of starting from the market, choosing some criteria. So assume that we are segmenting the market for a new shampoo. You can split the market according to the hair of people, dark hair, blonde hair, those who have no hair at all. And after that, you can split between dandruff hair, dry hair, greasy hair, and so on. And you can use some other criteria. And at the end of the day, you will achieve a million of clients, all different from each other, right? So that's what you achieve if you do a segmentation. It's sometimes called a micro segmentation if it comes into many details. But which criteria to choose for segmenting your market? Let's have a look at this. Let's consider the group of people attending this virtual summit. Which criteria could we use for segmenting the group of people attending this summit? I guess I do not know you, unfortunately, but I guess that among you there are women and men. So that's the first criterion with two modalities. I guess that there are US participant, Canadian participant, French participant, and other. That's the second criterion with 4 modalities. I guess that there are that some of you are less than 25 years old, some of you are more than 50 years old, and some are in between. Third criteria with 3 modalities, and so on. Some of you are tall, some of you are small, some of you are rich, some of you are poor, some of you have blonde hair, black hair, gray hair, some of you, and so on and so on. So if you consider all these criteria, they could possibly be consistent, but when you combine all these criteria with all these modalities of expression, you achieve 3,456 combinations, which means more segments than people in this virtual classroom. So you see, it's stupid. It is stupid. You cannot have more segments than people in the group. So there is something wrong in this way of doing. And furthermore, consider that if the aim of this segmentation would be to invite you to come with me cycling up Tour de France mountain pass, well, the relevant criteria would not be in the list. So you see that the choice of the criteria is critical, and the choice of the criteria is related to your situation, is related to your product, to your company, to the aim that you are aiming. So no need, in fact, no need hundreds of criteria. Just a few relevant criteria coming from the field are enough for producing an acceptable segmentation. And one thing that I suggest that you keep in mind is that the segmentation is a trade-off between simplifying the reality and displaying the complexity and the diversity of the market. So you see, it's really an elusive skill. The segmentation is really an elusive skill consisting of finding this trade-off between displaying the complexity and the diversity of the reality and simplifying the reality. Why simplifying the reality? Because the human brain is limited. The human brain can take into account only 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information to take a decision. So it means that if you have too many segments, your human brain is lost, and you will make a random choice. Your human brain is lost in the complexity. So did you really hear the figures? The human brain can take into account only 7 plus minus 2 pieces of information at the same time consciously to take a decision. So that's why only few relevant criteria coming from the field are enough. And I suggest that you make the segmentation keep it simple and short. It is always better than the too complex segmentation. So the secret of the entrepreneurial segmentation is here. So I am asking you your attention because this slide is one of the most important slides of the presentation, because it is really a good mix between the innovation and the entrepreneurship, and it is making a link between different very important fields in entrepreneurship and innovation. So the big secret of the entrepreneurial segmentation is here. If you consider the mainstream in marketing, what we have called the other day Kotler's marketing, what is the marketing process? And the marketing segmentation process. You start from the market, so defining the market. Then you segment the market. Next, you target the market. So that's the purpose of the diagnosis I was talking about when giving an answer to Mrs. Saint-Pierre. Targeting the segment that you want to break into and positioning yourself, positioning your product and your company compared to the competition to get a competitive advantage over the competition and win the clients, right? So this is the mainstream in marketing, and trust me, in all the schools of management and MBA, the students are trained to repeat as a decerebrated frog, segmenting, targeting, positioning, segmenting, targeting, positioning. Maybe that works in exploitation, but in exploration, that's another game. It does not work like that because we cannot start from the market as we do not have the market first. So during the exploration, we must use another process for segmenting the market. So as we said, as the market does not exist, the only thing that is existing is the client. So we start from the clients, and the process now is the following. In the exploration, you start with the client, you go with the client for interviewing, observing the clients, for interpreting their needs, and your first job is to try desperately to discover the clients who will say wow to your product. So who are the clients who have a problem fitting with my invention, with my competencies, with my product? Customer discovery. Next, you remember customer validation. In the segmentation process, what does it mean? It means trying desperately to find clients that look like the first client who said, wow. Why that? Why that? Because one sparrow does not make the summer, which means that one client does not make a segment. So if you have not any guarantee that behind the expectation of one client they are the expectation of an entire segment, you take the risk of making an investment, of spending as much money in one client as in one segment. And you realize that the profitability is totally different, because if you invest much money in one client, you will recover less money than if you invest for an entire segment. So the second step is to try desperately to find other clients looking like the first client who said wow. And now when you repeat this process in several segments, you are really doing this segmentation. You are describing several segments with different characteristics. And when you gather all these segments, you get your market definition. And as from here, you can go back to the mainstream in marketing, the day when you start the exploitation phase, and you can take your market definition, inject your market definition into the exploitation process, and as from here, the marketers, the managers of exploitation will be able to start with their segmenting, targeting, positioning process. But you see, it's just impossible to start from the market, to to design a real marketing strategy when the market does not exist. So the only thing resisting, we say in sociology of innovation, the only thing that is resisting, the only thing that you can rely on at the beginning are the clients. So you must start the process with the clients. So we have two steps, the exploration. So you must start first in the exploration process if you want to have the slightest chance to start one day with the exploitation process. And the reason for doing that, a good reason to start from the client is that in marketing, you create things for customers. All the rest is in support of this aim. I do not remember who said this word, but it could be Peter Drucker that we have quoted yesterday. If you remember, there are only two big issues in business. It's creating satisfied clients, if you remember that. So the two big issues are marketing and innovation. So a good reason to start from the client is that you create things for customers and all the rest is in support of this aim. So I hope that you will keep in mind this chart, because really it is the big issue in segmenting the market. So you realize that compared to the mainstream in marketing, once again, we are walking upside down. And realize, if you remember what we said the first day, be conscious of what you do when you do it. If you practice the mainstream in marketing, you are right if you are in exploitation, but you are wrong if you are in exploration. And conversely, if you use the marketing of innovation when you are in exploitation, you are wrong. So last principle, combine intuition and rationalization. A key point. A key point, because we shall talk about intuition. The intuition is really a serious game. Honestly, when I ask the participants in my classroom if they trust their intuition, more than 2/3 of them raise their hand because they trust their intuition. And when I ask them, why do you trust your intuition? Their answer is, well, it works sometimes. Yes, sometimes. But anyway, we shall see that the intuition is a serious game, in spite of the fact that for rational managers, the intuition is a fortune teller skill. But why is it a serious game and not a fortune teller skills? If we come back to the definition of the intuition, the word is coming from a Latin word. This Latin word means observing carefully. So you realize that he who has not observed something carefully cannot have a sound intuition on this something. So we must start from the observation. But it works sometimes, they say the participant. Yes, because it is quick and dirty. Sometimes it does not work. And you cannot convince your boss, you cannot convince your banker just on the basis of your intuition. Because there is, in France, there is the rule of the boss. The rule of the boss is always right. And in this case, the boss will tell you, well, you tell me that you have a big market, that you have an outstanding project, but my intuition is better than yours, so get lost. I have the intuition that you will fail, and I have the intuition that I shall keep my money for somebody more serious than you. So bring me some figures, bring me some proofs, so that I can trust you, but you cannot convince just on the basis of your intuition. But anyway, it is the starting point of the entrepreneurial project. The intuition is the the spark. Is the spark. It is the starting point of the entrepreneurship project. No intuition, no entrepreneurship project. So, to prove that the intuition works, assume that you are driving your car on a small country road, and suddenly you arrive behind an old station wagon, an old worn-out station wagon, driven by an old farmer wearing a cap and smoking a fag. What do you do? Close your eyes to see better the situation. What do you do when you are in front of this situation? An old station wagon driven by an old farmer wearing a cap and smoking a fag. What do you do? If you answer like 90% of the part in my classroom, you will say, I will overtake and I will honk because I am assuming that this guy is a Sunday driver. He's driving slowly, he will turn on the left without indicator. He is a Sunday driver, and if I want to avoid the catastrophe, I must overtake or honk to indicate that I am behind him. And tell me the truth. How many cases did you need to arrive to the conclusion that the old farmer driving an old station wagon are a Sunday driver? Tell me the truth. Did you really make a statistical study to achieve this conclusion? No, only 2 or 3 cases, similar cases, will draw you to this conclusion. And if you want me to be honest, I think sometimes it's no case at all. Because when you were a kid, you were sitting down on the back seat of your dad's car, and he was complaining about these farmers who are Sunday drivers. So before knowing how to drive your car, you knew that farmers are Sunday drivers. So you see, the intuition can rely on very few pieces of information to drive you to a conclusion. And I guess that if you arrive behind this car, you will not overtake on the white line, and you will stay quietly behind and wait until you can overtake with safely. So you see, you meet a situation and you take a decision. So let's summarize what we have done during this process with the old farmer. First, you observe carefully. You observe carefully what? You observe carefully 2 or 3 similar situations. No need many, as we said before, no need many. No need to make a statistical study about hundreds of thousands of old farmers driving this kind of car to achieve the conclusion that they are a Sunday driver. There is a consequence of this. If you do not need many cases, you do not need to spend much money in carrying out an international market survey. You can do the job yourself. No need to spend money in a market survey, but do not make me tell what I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you that you do not need market survey or consultant for making the market survey. I mean that to set the assumption in the exploration phase, you can do the job yourself. With 1 or 2 persons, you can do the job. Next, when you have set up the assumptions, the hypothesis, you can ask to a consultant or a market survey expert to validate your assumptions. So you see what I mean? At the very beginning of the process, No need to make hundreds or thousands of interviews. 2 or 3, but some or few interviews are enough to have a pretty good idea of what your market looks like, but it's only an assumption that need to be validated. So let's come back to the situation. You recognize from outside the situation to some features. I mean, the old station wagon, worn out, the farmer wearing a cap and smoking a fag. And you associate a behavior to this, they are Sunday drivers. And considering this, you can possibly find an explanation, but as soon as you recognize this type of driver on the road, you can anticipate his behavior, and this anticipation will trigger your adapted action. It means that if you meet an old farmer, you overtake and you honk, and if you meet a police car, you stay quietly and safely behind until you can overtake in good condition. So that's the meaning of a segmentation that is relying on few similar situations. You see, you can get a first good feeling of what is your market by few interviews and few cases. So to summarize and to finish with, the segmentation process, taking into account all what we have said before, is the following. If you're with me, the first step is the observation. Well, observation or conversation, interviewing clients, observation, observing carefully, it is the field phase. Next, we said combine your intuition and your rationalization. With your intuition, so start with your intuition and group together the clients that look alike from your point of view. Do not ask you too many questions. Try just to group together the clients that look alike. Next, we call this quasi-segment. Why quasi-segment? Because they are not real segments. We do not have the proof that they are real segments because we are just in the intuition phase. So we shall call them quasi-segment, nearly a segment, but not sure. Then we go through a series of logical tests to improve this segmentation, to enrich this segmentation, to rationalize and to justify and explain this segmentation. Next, we shall discover the criteria, we shall combine the criteria, and I would like to draw your attention on one point. We discover the hidden criteria. That is very important because it is the key point when you reveal to yourself what are the criteria used by your brain to group the clients together. So you realize with this chart, with this slide, that we discover the segmentation criteria only during the fourth step of the segmentation, not at the beginning. Not at the beginning. Then you combine the criteria, and all this stuff is the rationalization phase, and next you get your segments. You can make some iteration to improve, and at the end you got your segment, and it works the same for both the applications and the behavior. I think we have achieved the end of this block, and if Mrs. Saint-Pierre has collected some question, it will be my pleasure to answer.
So, Mr. Millier, what immediate questions should we ask ourselves to exercise our intuition?
Sorry, excuse me. I was not ready to hear. Sorry.
It's okay. What immediate questions should we ask ourselves to exercise our intuition? to make it more productive. Intuition is obviously something that comes naturally, but you know, what thought process would you recommend to exercise this intuition?
Well, actually, I do not know if there are really a question to ask to yourself. The principle of your intuition is do as you feel. You see, when I said group together the clients that look alike, in the first step is just as you feel. It seems to you that the clients are going together, so you put them together. And the best way to do is to practice. And you will see that the more you practice, the better you are at your intuition.
And the second question, how can, pertaining to the previous segment, how can you sell at a higher price to Renault in the composite market when you must sell it at a lower price to them in the metal part markets, since obviously one department speaks with the other? So how would you approach that, having the same client?
Okay, very good question. Very, very good question, because I do not know what it is about in North America, but in France there is a law, there is a regulation and a law forbidding to sell the same product at a different price to different clients. But in the case of the non-destructive tester using pulse laser, I would like to draw your attention that Renault Lab is absolutely not the same client as Renault Manufacturing. And you said at the end of the question that presumably they speak together. But first, it is not obviously true, because they are so different. They are in so different locations that sometimes they do not know each other what they are doing. So first, they do not communicate. And secondly, you have understood that on the one hand, you have Renault Labs, and what do you sell them? You sell them a complex laboratory prototype, when on the other hand, you sell a black box. So you see, the products are so pretty much different from each other that there is no reason for not selling them at different prices. Just to finish with, if I can allow me, just to finish with, talking about the clients, we talk about purchasing group. What is the buying group or the purchasing group? It's the people who take together the decision to purchase a definite product. So in the case of the lab, the purchasing group is totally different from the purchasing group in the manufacturing units. So as these purchasing groups are totally different, we shall consider them as two totally different clients.